Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. We are at Peace Pulse. I'm Dr. Manal Fakori. I'm being joined by Patricia Wagner, our co-founder of Peace Pulse. And we have an amazing speaker today to present, Dot Maver. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dot. And I'm going to Peace Pulse. And we have an amazing speaker today to present, Dot Maver. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dot. So Patricia, I need to turn off something, right?
You need to close down Facebook and then just open Zoom.
Turn off something, right?
You need to close down Facebook.
Yep.
And then just open.
Okay. So Facebook has been closed.
Perfect.
Just let me see, and let me find us again. Here we go. All right, great. Everyone is here. Oh, we'll get better. More experience, more practice. All right. So Dr. Dot Maver is an educator and peace builder whose keynote is inspiring cooperation on behalf of the common good. Dot is co-founder of the Global Silent Minute, National Peace Academy USA, the Global Alliance for Ministries and Infrastructures of Peace, and the Seven Ray Institute, and was founding executive director of the River Phoenix Center for Peace Building, which is close to us here in Gainesville, and the Peace Alliance USA, ... And she has served as a national campaign manager for Kissimmee for President 2004, and in the world of fast pitch softball. Dr. Dot is known for her revolutionary fast pitch hitting technique, the Maver method, Secrets of Hitting Success. She is also co-author of the book, Conscious Education, The Bridge to Freedom, and is a member of the Evolutionary Leader Circle. But most importantly, she's our friend. We love her and we're proud of her. And whenever we hear about the work she's doing, we applaud for her. So please help me in just a warm welcome to Dr. Dot.
Oh, thank you so much, Manal. So heartfelt. And it's been a number of years now that, yes, we are family, all of us. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share. And I've been invited to share a bit about the Global Silent Minute, the story of it, actually. And just before I do that, I first want to thank everyone who is tuning in, watching this, and who is working so closely with Manal and Patricia all of the time. The work that you are doing is making a difference, touching hearts and minds, and helping us all to realize that peace is not just possible, it is probable, and in fact, it is when we ourselves are peace. So every time I hear you speak, Manal, my heart sings. Thank you. So I want to say that we're so aware that we're in an all systems breakdown on this beautiful planet we all call home. And it's painful. I mean, it's painful to look in the direction of Europe. It's painful to look in the direction of the Far East. It's painful to look anywhere right now because of climate change. So, and on every level, it seems. And yet, I will submit that we are simultaneously in an all systems breakthrough. And that word through is key, because when we can achieve harmony through conflict, when we can move through apparent polarizations and oppositions to find a way of common purpose and sharing and cooperation, that is when we will realize peace. Peace, living in right relationship with self, others, and all life. All life. So it was 2019 in the end of January, early February, and 3 groups had decided to go on retreat in Australia, up on the Sunshine Coast in Australia. One, the Hill Center for Peace Building from New Hampshire, USA, which is where I'm calling in from. Another group in Sydney, Australia, and another right there up on the Sunshine Coast. And the 3 groups came together, and one of the people in the group on the Sunshine Coast had put out a book on a coffee table out in the shared commons room where we were staying. And I was told afterwards, knowing that Dot's an early riser, she'll pad out here, she'll find this book. So sure enough, it's very early in the morning, and I find this book and I open it. The book, by the way, is the title, Chalice Well. And for those who are familiar with Chalice Well, it is in Glastonbury in the UK. It's beautiful, founded by Wellesley Tudor Pole. So I open this book, and you know how it is when a book jumps off a shelf at you, or you're walking by your bookcase and suddenly the print on the title on one of them is bigger than the rest of them. You're like, what? So you pull that book and you open, and sure enough, there's something for you. And I read the story of the Silent Minute, the Big Ben Silent Minute. In 1917, 2 soldiers were lying on a battlefield just outside Jerusalem. One of them said to the other, "I have had a vision, and I will not live through this war. You will. The vision I have had, I see a war, land, sea, air, much greater than the war we are fighting right now. You will live through this war, and you need to find a way for me and all those on the other side of the veil to assist in ending all war, in bringing peace to humankind. There is an army of goodwill on the other side of the veil, but they cannot impose their will. They must be invited." Wellesley Tudor Pole was the one who received that message. And the next day, his comrade died in battle. And it would be 23 years later, in 1940, that Wellesley Tudor Pole realized, in the midst of the bombings of London, and which is where he was, he realized he had to do something. And his friend on the battlefield, his final statement was, "The power of silence is greater than you know." So in 1940, Wellesley Tudor Pole had an idea, and he went to the BBC, and he invited them to take 1 minute of silence at 9 p.m. London time every night. And he went to the Trust of Big Ben and invited them to sound the Big Ben bells through the BBC, and then radio silence around the world. Churchill supported this, the Parliament supported this. In fact, the US President Roosevelt supported this. And so every night at 9 p.m., the bells of Big Ben would ring, and there would be silence as people invited those on the other side of the veil to join them in prayers and invocations for peace, for the end of all war, for peace. At the end of the war, a German officer was interrogated, and he said, we didn't know how to counter the secret weapon of the British. I believe they called it the Silent Minute. When I read that story, immediately I knew in my heart, I was on fire with it. I knew in my heart, we know that 2 concordant thoughts increase the power exponentially. In fact, in Agni Yoga, it's said specifically, 2 thoughts simultaneously increase the power of it by 7. Imagine millions of us around the world simultaneously and intentionally for 1 minute, just 1 minute every day, inviting all those on the other side of the veil to join us in our call for global cooperation, peace, and freedom. So I made a cup of tea, and I go out, I'm sitting at the little kitchen bar there, and I'm just like, okay, we can do this. We can make this happen. And my friend Wendy pads down the hall, and I said, "Wendy, fix a cup of tea. Let me read you this." And the 2 of us, just for the next period of time, which seemed like a lifetime, we began to think and spark through our fiery hearts how we could land this that felt to us like it was a task that had been handed to us to assist at this moment in time. All three groups agreed. So by dinner time, we had a little plan, the purpose, plan, action, right? That's how it works. And if we work from purpose instead of the other way around, right, then essence informs form instead of creating form and then trying to figure out what we're doing. So purpose, essence always informs form. So with that, we decided we would call it Solstice Silent Minute and have it on the 21st of December. And almost immediately, a dear friend, Philip Helmick, who when I got back to the States and started to tell people about it, and we started planning for Solstice December 21st, 2019, almost immediately Philip said, you know, Dot, solstice is such a great choice because everyone honors solstice. It's not going to have a push or pull from any of the factions anywhere on the planet. However, maybe you want to consider global silent minute so that it's really just really clear. And then it can be used anytime and anywhere to support anything that has to do with bringing peace on earth, with humankind fulfilling its destiny. So we decided to do that. And my goodness, so many got involved. I heard from John Raymer, who then said, you know, we've started this sign network, SINE.network. Let's make this one of our initial big sign events. And it goes out. He helped marry Zoom and Facebook in a way that is just brilliant. So it goes out everywhere. So we did. On December 21st, we were everywhere. It was remarkable. We broadcast from New York City at the World Goodwill Conference. And Sister Jenna helped open it, of the Brahma Kumaris. And so it was across the board. It's just, oh my goodness. So as I'm sharing this, you can tell I'm on fire with it, because what has happened since then, and we are now in 2022, right? It has not been that long a time, relatively speaking. However, the numbers have increased exponentially. And speaking for myself, I'm often the one invited to offer a global silent minute. And we've offered it with the Theosophical Society, a healing 5 silent minutes we did. We offer it all the time with Unity Earth, and in the lead up to World Unity Week, and for International Day of Peace, we do a 24-hour with Peace Pulse and the Peace Wave, and really honoring the noontime in every time zone. And for us, it's 9 p.m. GMT every day. So right now, that's 5 p.m. New York time, Eastern in the United States. So, but as I'm speaking of this right now, and I come on fire with it again, I'm so aware that there are so many of us answering the call in this moment. And for me, in silence, we can achieve unity. It's like silence as action in sacred unity. Because once we drop into the heart, as you well know from heart coherence and the pulse, how beautiful all of this work, our hearts beat as one. And in fact, in Agni Yoga, it said, our hearts are on loan to us during an incarnation. And in truth, I'll put quotes around this, belong to the one great heart. And so as our hearts unite across distance and beat as one heart, it is amazing how we come into synchronized rhythm with the purpose of the planet herself. And through that, again, the word through, we can achieve harmony through conflict. So we're using silence as, dare I say, a spiritual weapon? But we're using silence in the most spiritual sense to create action, silence as action through sacred unity. So I'd love to take us into a global silent minute, if that works for you, Manal. Okay. So let us prepare. You've heard the story. Let us prepare to enter the silence together. With a deep breath, we activate the spirit of peace in our own hearts. And we unite our hearts across distance. And we take just a moment and we invite all those on the other side of the veil to be with us, to join us in our call for global cooperation, peace, and freedom. And as the bells ring, we enter our minute of silence as action in sacred unity. May peace prevail on earth. Silent Minute at www.globalsilentminute.org. So, is there more that, may I speak for another few minutes about? Okay. So, I would love to share just a little bit about how the Global Silent Minute is being used in cooperation now with a few other groups. And one of them is One Humanity Institute, onehumanity.institute. And we have offered a Global Silent Minute at numerous events now as One Humanity Institute for the last 7 years has been working in Auschwitz, Poland, to renovate the old bakery there. And ultimately, their vision is a city of hope. But right now, they are working with the bakery to renovate it into a house of hope. And when the crisis just burst onto the global scene with Russia and Ukraine and all the attendant countries and policies and everything else that we are all dealing with, that group, Team Hope on the ground in Poland, immediately saw it as an opportunity for service, recognizing that through what was happening, the entire world, at least for a moment, was in unity, thinking, looking, speaking in the same direction. And that there was a great need for refugees crossing the border, and particularly for Nina Meyerhoff, one of the founders, one of the co-founders, and also founder of Children of the Earth, for the children themselves. And so she started a teddy bear project years ago after 9/11 and has been in many places with the teddy bear project. And so many of us got involved, and we had so many donations of teddy bears, and they took them to the border Father James Twyman. We did events with him right away, calling in both our Ukrainian and Russian brothers and sisters to call for peace and to be unified in that call for peace. Once again, uniting our hearts across distance. The pain and the suffering is unbearable for all of us. And at this moment, particularly for so many Ukrainians who have lost their homes and who are leaving, going into Poland, not speaking Polish, most of them. So what has transpired beyond the Teddy Bear Project now, and One Humanity Institute, onehumanity.institute, if you want to see some of the pictures and the videos and get more information. But what has transpired now is the old bakery is being transformed into House of Hope, and the first families will move in shortly for transitional housing for those who are in need. And in honor of Philip Helmick, the one who helped us name Global Silent Minute, who he withdrew to the other side just about 6 weeks ago now, we are dedicating a peace lab in his honor. And he did such beautiful work with children and also with Shift Network, Search for Common Ground, and then Shift Network. And so Philip, a dear brother, as his light continues to shine in the world, the Peace Lab will be dedicated to him. And we are in the process of setting up desks, computers, the whole internet system in the house. And imagine those children, in the moment Ukrainian, we see down the road there may be other refugees in need. And Team Hope says, we want them to know themselves as guests. They are guests at House of Hope. And so, excuse me, and so offering the opportunity with the help of Svetlana from the Peace School in Kyiv, Ukraine, and she is a lead teacher there for 40 years, that these children then can be in touch with their teachers and schoolmates who are still in Ukraine. So we see this as another step of uniting hearts across distance, and we are offering all the tools and resources we can through our Peace Education Network, global campaign for peace education, which has tremendous resources, and a number of our colleagues who have written books, particularly children's books, just offering them into the field. It's a really beautiful, beautiful journey that we are all on in the midst of horrific pain and suffering. So, and as Team Hope has said many times, it is time to really transform all of these spots on the planet so that we move fully, transform from hate to hope. And hope for me, like faith, right? It's a substance, it's substantive. You can lean on it. It's the evidence of things unseen and the substance of things to come. So I just stand firmly that peace will prevail in our hearts and in the world. So thank you. And maybe if there are any questions or comments.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was excellent. And I have a couple of questions, and I think maybe some of our listeners, and even as we continue to share this, may be thinking, so here we are, it's May 2022. And of course, in the news, we also heard about Buffalo and the mass shooting. And if you look even on some of the numbers that they're sharing in the media, how many that we've had, just since the beginning of 2022. What do you believe when there's an ideology that is rampant within this country and maybe globally? How do you, what's the best approach that you have come across in terms of trying to really shift that and even to introduce this idea of a global silent minute as a possible therapeutic, tool?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the question, Manal. It's not an easy question to address for any of us in this moment, even within our own families. So I want to say a couple of things. And the first thing I will say is that I live life from the perspective of a triangle, always, no matter what. Even when I work, I love to work with two other people in triangle. And as I mentioned earlier, we can, in my experience, is always always, if we are willing to open our hearts and minds, find common purpose, a common ground, put it that way, a shared value, well, by whatever language, at the top of that triangle. When our children are educated with social emotional skills and not just information, we will continue, and I will say continue because many schools are realizing this and doing this now. We will move in that direction. The social emotional skills have been seen as soft in the past. They are actually our strength. As the feminine is rising, it is strong women building a gentle world. And the feminine, not to be confused that it's only women, but right now it seems there are many women stepping into leadership positions and education positions who really understand this and are willing to say, I can remember when I was interviewed when I was the executive director of the Peace Alliance, and the Prime Minister of Israel had just spoken to the US Congress and was saying, we must teach our children not to hate. And I was interviewed by Al Jazeera almost immediately after that. And I said, I'd just like to pull that thread through. I totally agree with the Prime Minister. And the way I would reframe that, I would say we must teach our children how to love. Love is our strength. And I make I have no qualms about saying that, about demonstrating that. Love is our strength on this planet. And so a second thing in the field of education that is happening among many groups right now, we're going to experience it during World Unity Week, there's a shift happening from human-centric governance to ecocentric governance. And what I mean by that is there are foundations of life that become the priority for how we self-organize, govern ourselves, and have policies in place that we all agree, like everybody drives on the right side of the road in the United States. We all agree that, because if we started arguing with that, oh my goodness, we'd all be in trouble. Well, it's that way when you look at foundations of life such as earth, water. I mean, my goodness, water is probably the greatest unifier on the planet right now. And there is a world water law, by the way, codes.earth/water law. Excuse me, and out of a group, Codes for a Healthy Earth. So earth, water, fire, air, the basic elements, if we can come together around this, just look at Australia. One year the fires, oh my goodness, and the next year floods. So, and we say, yes, it has to do with climate, which would be the next thing, biodiversity, and the final seventh principle, web of life. Imagine us shifting how we educate ourselves, how we come to think of ourselves as a shared resource. The planet's not here for humanity. We are one of the resources on the planet. And yet we can think, and we have hands and feet to build the temple, and we have free will. So for me, it's always about education, always, formal and informal, both. But these things that we're seeing that are transpiring are wonderful. And so many of the problems that we have right now have to do with people bucking authority. And this, for whatever, I will say that if I take a bird's eye view, I have to say, okay, in so many cases, it's just so awful. At the same time, we are making a tremendous shift on our journey as humankind, because we are shifting from outside influence where, in my own life, what somebody else tells me to do, what an authority thinks I should do. Oh, should I do? Well, let me ask somebody else. To inner authority. I am the one who knows. I am the one who can decide, who can choose. And the first quality on that path for all of us must be harmlessness. So to all of life, right? And that begins with me. So that, I would say that. The other thing I would say is we are all experiencing trauma. You mentioned Buffalo. I mean, oh, how tragic, how much more tragic can it get? And as Azim Khamisa, in California who lost his son to gun violence. He says all the time, there's killing at both ends of the gun, both sides of the gun, always. So how is it that we get serious about trauma healing, which then allows us to think, because when we are in trauma, we are in a reactive state almost constantly, and then others' thoughts and opinions, and as you said, ideologies, etc., they can overcome us, and it's very sad. So the intervention and ultimately prevention point for me is trauma healing, education, and then I think the criminal justice system around the world is one of the best examples we have of what's emerging right now as we shift from punishment to restoration. And that's restorative justice. And when you mentioned Gainesville River Phoenix Center for Peace Building, that's one of the reasons I moved down there as founding executive director so many years ago now, and stay in such close touch with, and I'm serving on the board, because that is one of the most serious demonstrations in this country of what is possible with police youth dialogue, restorative justice, healthy communication, nonviolence skill set, social emotional learning, etc., that is not just intervening, but preventing, and in fact proactive towards a culture of peace. Peace as the organizing principle. So that's a long-winded answer, but that's what I think.
No, thank you. And I do have to point one thing that you said, because I'm going to get asked about it. And that is, in terms of credibility, because you used the example of the Prime Minister of Israel and then Al Jazeera, and yet you see what's currently happening there. I mean, even, the top human rights organization, has said it's apartheid. And people don't even understand what apartheid is. But for him to say that, and then you see what is happening, I think that's where people then don't take us seriously, the whole, to use someone like him in terms of credibility to what, people are experiencing.
Yeah. Well, that was so many years ago.
Mhm.
And in that moment, what we were looking at was making choice on this planet. We're talking, oh my goodness, we're talking all the way back to 2005.
Okay.
And we were at a choice point on the planet. So, and I don't know that we have made some very good choices. Yeah, I agree with you. My point in saying it like that is that from day one, those of us working through the Peace Alliance and other groups, the Global Alliance for Ministries for Peace, are consistent in our message and striving to demonstrate that it's the power of love. It's not the love of power that is going to move us through. Yeah, no, it's a tragedy what's happening right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Patricia, do you have anything that you'd like to ask or say before we close today's session with the wonderful Dr. Dot Niebuhr?
I'd just like to thank Dot. Thank you so much. That was brilliant. And also, if you don't mind, please repeat the website for Global Silent Minute for our viewers. Thank you.
Thank you. www.globalsilentminute.org. And we're also on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and globalsilentminute.org.
Excellent. So thank you so much for joining us once again, and we will keep in touch. And I think this is just another opportunity to continue to do exactly what you said, is to put that good energy into the universe. And you never know, you know the saying, I'd rather have one person that's passionate instead of 44 that are merely interested.
True enough.
Passionate people really have the ability to bring thousands along. So God willing, we will be able to move the needle on that. So thank you again.
Inshallah.
Thank you, inshallah. Okay, so